Hello everybody, Jake here and welcome to the hobby. Over the past 6 to 12 months, I've been selling quite a bit of Pokemon cards. Not as much as you might think, but still quite a bit. And over the next 6 to 12 months, I expect to be selling even more Pokemon cards because there are some huge life-changing events that are going to be happening inside of my own personal life. None that I can announce immediately, but because of these life-changing events, I'm going to be selling off some pieces from my collection. And I thought in today's video, it'd be fun to instill some wisdom on just things that I've noticed over the past 6 to 12 months in selling Pokemon cards. These are not things that are biases to me, at least I hope not. These are things that I've just noticed or recognized happening in the hobby as I'm selling Pokemon cards. So let's go off with some of the more obvious stuff. I have a bunch of stuff on my table, but one of the things that I've been selling off is sealed products. And a big reason why I sell off sealed products is because I don't value it as much as some really cool cards inside of my collection. Cards that I pulled, cards that were given to me, cards that have intrinsic value to me. So those are cards that I have some more personal attachment to, so I'm not going to be letting go of those. But generic sealed products like a Fusion Strike booster box, this is pretty generic. You know, I currently don't have it on display. It doesn't really hold any emotional attachment to me personally. So this is an item that I'm pretty readily willing to let go of. So what are some of the channels that you are going to go through to sell this booster box? If you need the money immediately, you can take this to a card shop and they'll cash you out. Most TCG card shops are going to be very excited to cash you out of this booster box. But if you go to a card shop, that's going to be the biggest net loss in immediate value. Most card shops will give you between 75 to 80% of market value for this booster box. If you're with a super generous card shop, they might give you 85. If you go to one that's super generous, and I would probably take that offer. Most card shops are probably going to do between 75 to 80. Back in the day, they would probably give you 60 to 70%, but because of Pokemon card hype, the margins have gotten a lot better, and most card shops are willing to give you 75 to 80% on a booster box like this. If you want even more value for this booster box, you're going to have to probably list it on a place like eBay or TCG Player, maybe Facebook Marketplace if you're willing to be a little bit more risky. If you take something like this to a vending show, I found that booster boxes and sealed products are actually really challenging to sell. Most vendor will pass on this at a card show. Even though it is a pretty liquid product, you could probably sell this pretty easily. A lot of vendors aren't willing to deal with something like this. Why is that? It's a sealed product. It's kind of heavy. If they don't sell it at that immediate card show, they're probably going to have to travel with it, and no one wants to lug around a bunch of bricks. So what I found is that booster boxes don't sell very well at vending card shows. You have to have a vendor that actually enjoys sealed products, and those are few and far between. A lot of vendors love graded Pokemon cards. They will happily take any graded Pokemon card, specifically with PSA. It has to be with PSA, but they're willing to take almost any graded card. Like a graded card like this one, this is a Buzzwole PSA 9. Obviously, I love Buzzwole, but this PSA 9 should be a hard sell. Like, this is way more niche than a Fusion Strike booster box, right? The odds of you selling a Buzzwole PSA 9 should be a lot lower than the Fusion Strike booster box. More hands buy a Fusion Strike booster boxes over a Buzzwole PSA 9. What I can guarantee you is that if you go to a vending show, no vendor will push this off. They're probably willing to buy it. I don't really see any struggle with selling PSA graded cards, even super niche graded PSA 10s or 9s to a lot of vendors, but they will pass on sealed products like this. This is a hard sell. I would have to walk over 100 tables before I find a vendor that's willing to buy a Fusion Strike booster box. That sounds insane to me, but that's currently how it is. But pretty much any graded Pokemon cards, especially PSA 9s and 10s, you can sell those pretty readily. Pretty much any vendor will give you cash for PSA 9s and 10s, and those they'll probably do 80%, and that's pretty solid, maybe even 85 if you're lucky. And I'm pretty good with negotiating with vendors, so I can usually get between like 85 to 90% even. Sometimes I've been able to get up to like 95% just because I'm a really solid negotiator. But like something like a Pikachu promo card, like this McDonald's Pikachu, we gave away a lot of copies of this for the holiday giveaway last year. That's pretty easy to sell to any vendor. It should be a challenging sell because there are so many copies of it, but it's actually a surprising easy sell. Something that's impossible to sell to a vendor is non-Pokemon cards. Something like this sticker from the Tohoku Pokemon Center reopening. You've probably seen these on the background of my videos. I've talked about these. I really enjoyed these. These are impossible to sell. I like them because I'm a collector. But if you try to sell this to a vendor, you're going to have a real hard time. And a reason why this is going to have a real hard time selling is because it's way too niche. Way too niche, even for any vendors to take, right? A Buzzwole PSA 9 doesn't sound like it'll sell very easily, but they're willing to take this very easily. Like, this is a liquid card. I could go to any table and they'll probably cash me out for it, even though it's like not a super expensive card. A lot of cards have now become blue chip. I think when we're talking about something that's really blue chip, the Moonbreon is surprisingly very, very blue chip. Dozens of copies of this card trade hands every single day. Lots of people trade hands with something like this Umbreon VMAX. If you're trying to invest in something, this is a card that will probably go up at a very, very slow pace. I think a lot of people that had the Umbreon or the Moonbreon and thought that it was going to moon. It's done incredibly well, but there is 21,000 graded PSA 10 copies of this card. This is a card that would probably trade pretty easily at a card show. And what I've noticed is that more expensive cards, and especially more niche cards, especially high-end expensive niche cards, vendors will actually back off from. Something like this Eevee GX in a PSA 10, it is currently valued around $5,500. There's less than 300 PSA 10 copies of this card. And what I've found with going to a lot of card shows is that this will actually deter a lot of vendors. Unless you're willing to go to a large vending table with deeper pockets, most vending tables don't carry 5K plus. What I've recognized is that a lot of vending tables don't carry 5K plus. Like 5K is their whole entire cash volume for the weekend. So a card like this is going to be a hard sell at a card show. If you want to sell something like this, you're going to have to go through eBay, you know, especially with authenticity guarantee. That makes it a lot easier to sell, and it's going to take a while. A card like this, if I were to list on eBay, it might take 2 to 3 months for it to sell at the price that I want. And it's because it's a very niche card, but that's okay. So just be aware that in terms of liquidity, I could probably sell this at a vending card show immediately if I find the right vending table, but they're going to give me like 80% of the value of this card, maybe even a little bit less. If I want more value from this card, I would go and list it on a place like eBay and probably get close to my asking price. And I'll probably make like an extra $500 to $800 on this card, but it's going to take a couple of months of just sitting around for it to sell. Let's talk about some more niche products. A lot of sealed products I found is incredibly niche and extremely hard to sell. You know, an item that is not even going to go up in value at all would be something like this Yokohama deck box. This comes with a really cool exclusive Pikachu. It's adorable, with Reshiram and Zekrom. Great looking card. I think this box is currently going for right around $400 to $500. On initial release back in 2023, this deck box was already going for $200 plus, mainly because it got a super cool promo card inside. Nowadays, it's going for right around $400, maybe like $450. Like maybe someone bought this for $500 on a very, very good day. But this is going to be a hard sell, and it didn't climb very fast, right? Because it's a very niche product. You know, I know about this product and I think it's really cool, but unless you're really deep into the hobby, this is not going to have wide appeal. Like, this is such a niche portion of the market. Luckily nowadays, with how expansive the hobby has gone, there is always a market for just about any item, no matter how niche, but it's going to take time to sell. This is not going to be easy to sell. Not at a card shop. Most card shops won't even take this. Most vending tables will pass on this. And if you were to list it on a place like eBay, it's going to take a while for this to sell. It will sell, but it's going to take a while. This is not going to be something easy to sell. Sealed product. English sealed product again. Something unique like this Shining Legends pin collection. Most card shops will take. Most vending tables will take. I would say most, but I say most, that's still like half the vending table. With a card like most PSA cards, like I said, like this Moonbreon, every vending table would take. I can't think of any vending table that would pass on purchasing a Moonbreon. And the only reason is because they know it'll sell. And if they have the money for it, they will buy it. So a Moonbreon you can sell to any vending table, and it's that easy. A Shining Legends pin collection, probably half of the vending tables will pass on it, and half of them would consider picking it up. Again, it's a sealed product. They have to display it, and it's pretty niche. You know, a lot of people are picking up singles. Singles and graded cards sell really often. Sealed products sit around at vending tables a lot more. So card shops will take something like this. Most will, if it's an English product, a Japanese product like the Yokohama Dex box, they're going to pass on, but this is something that they'll absolutely take. Let's go for something way more niche, you know? We got ourselves a Mega Rayquaza collection. This is really, really old, and it's a very cool collection box from the XY era, and this is pretty niche. You know, I picked this up last year, way before the hype. And so I was able to get this for a really good deal. It's a great display product. I think I picked it up for like $300. And recent sales of this thing has been going for closer to 2,200 to 2,800. And it's a really cool product, but again, like very, very niche. If you want to sell something like this, you're going to have to go through a place like eBay. If you walk around with a convention floor with something like this, most people are going to pass on it. Most vending tables are going to look at it, they're going to talk about it for a little bit, and then they're going to say, neat product, but I'm going to have to pass. Most vendors will not buy something like this. This is cool. It is very, very cool, but very niche as well. Incredibly niche. And most vending tables are not going to want to have something like this. Most card shops are going to pass on something like this. If you want to sell this to a card shop, be aware that they're probably going to want this at like 70% because it's such a hard sell. They're probably going to buy it, and then they are going to list it on eBay, because if they put something like this on a shelf inside of their shop, no one's going to walk in. No one walks in and go, you know what? I feel like spending $3,000 for a Mega Rayquaza collection today. But there are people online that would absolutely want something like this. So for something like this, it's eBay or nothing. Like, you have to list something like this on eBay. There's like just no other option to sell it, something like this. You need to cast the widest net possible because it's really niche. Some cards that I bought that actually went up really, really well this year. Something like this Rayquaza GX Rainbow Rare. We're going to be talking about Rayquaza because obviously Rayquaza is coming back into the TCG. We're getting Mega Rayquaza, a set based around Rayquaza, an Emerald base set that's really cool. So I picked up this Rayquaza GX for I think $720, maybe $800 back in January to February, and I absolutely love this card. I think it's super cool. I think it was so underrated for $700, $800. Right now it's going for right around $3,000, and that makes a lot more sense. I think a lot of people ask, like, how do you spot a card like this? Like, how do you spot a card that's underrated, right? This is a top tier chase card right out of Celestial Storm. If you were to rip open 500 Celestial Storm packs, an insane amount, you know, a Celestial Storm booster box alone, like one single booster box of 36 Celestial Storm booster pack is going to cost you like, I don't know, like over $2,000 or something ridiculous. If you rip open 500 booster pack, you probably still won't hit a single copy of this Rayquaza GX. That's how rare it is. So once you think about like the rarity and the demand, because at the end of the day, this is a Rayquaza GX, you know, like you got to pay some respect to the top tier Pokemon. It is incredibly rare. The population report on this card is incredibly low, down in the hundreds. You know, when we talk about something like the Moonbreon having 21,000 PSA 10 copy, and you have this card with, which is less than 1,000 PSA 10 copy, a magnitude lower in terms of population report, it made sense that it was going to climb. So you're thinking about cards that are potentially going to climb. You have to think about cards of really, really popular Pokemon, incredibly hard to pull, and surprisingly low pop report that are still underpriced, right? Because if you use this card as a benchmark, and I think the Moonbreon is a great benchmark card right now, if this card is $4,000, a card that is significantly more prestigious has to command a similar level of value. Again, another card that's been climbing really well has been the Rayquaza VMAX. This one I bought back in, I think, January for the Pokemon investing series, and it's done incredibly well as well. Again, a super cool card, and that's based on a couple of different things. You know, Rayquaza coming back into the TCG, incredibly low pop report, very popular, still underrated in terms of price compared to other cards in the same standard, and that's how you can use some examples of cards that are climbing in value. When we're talking about selling cards, graded cards sell super easily. Any vendor will take graded cards, even obscure one, which is why I use that Buzzwole PSA 9 as an example. That should be an incredibly niche card. Like, I could list this card on eBay for 6 months and it might still not sell. But if I walk around vending tables, I know they will buy this card. So there is a huge bias around graded slabs. Like, PSA graded slabs are very, very liquid at card show. Niche Japanese products, incredibly illiquid, incredibly hard to sell. Booster boxes, while booster boxes are very liquid, like you could list this on eBay and it'll probably sell within a week, vending tables will not take this. Like, I found that it's incredibly hard to sell booster boxes at card shows. Niche products like this, impossible to sell. Something like this, you have to cast the widest net possible, list it on eBay. And even then, like, it's kind of a pain to sell something like this too, because you'd have to package it, and packaging something like this large is just a pain as well. You got to take 100 photos of it too. So what I've generally found, and the wisdom that I can instill, is that sealed products are incredibly hard to sell. Incredibly hard to sell. Graded Pokemon cards, incredibly easy to sell. It's so convenient to sell graded Pokemon cards right now. It's an astronomical difference compared to the value that these things bring, right? Because a lot of people collect sealed products and it should be very liquid. But what I'm seeing in the market is that graded products just aren't that liquid. It's very hard to sell these stuff, especially for something like a booster box. People want 100 photos of booster boxes. Like, if you try to list a booster box on eBay, people want like a dozen photos of the back of the booster box. You gotta flip it all around, show it every single corner, zoom in on the details of the plastic, and you'll still get people DMing you saying, hey, is this plastic wrap correct? And I'll be like, I don't know. I'm not the Pokemon company. I think it's right for me. Look at the photos. That's my rant. Thank you so much for watching. This has been me trying to sell some Pokemon cards, and we're going to sell some more just because, like I said, some big life events are happening in my family, so we're going to see where that goes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.